4 Berrien Road. And to address what you just said, you were saying that it was, you don't understand, you don't see how it affected property value. But my question is, do you believe, is it something that you want to see in your neighborhood, a warehouse? If this was to happen to your neighborhood, I'm sure you'd be one of the first people there for it not to happen. And we understand that development is gonna happen, change is gonna happen. What we want is an opportunity. Like you said, something is gonna be there regardless, and we understand that. But we want the opportunity to choose what goes there. Not just stick it there and then we live with it.
Mm-hmm.
Record, don't make it record.
I can't see.
I make a motion that we, reject.
Second.
I'm sorry, what was the motion?
To reject.
To reject the application. Seconded by Commissioner Bright.
Okay, all in favor of rejection?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion does not carry. I'm not supposed to tell you, folks, this is go to city council. Okay, letter B, zoning map amendment application by Thomas Exley Jr. and the estate of Thomas Exley Senior for PIN number 7-0906-01-028 Highway 21 to rezone from RA residential agriculture to PC2 planned community business and PRM planned residential multifamily zoning districts for the purpose of a mixed-use development. Is the applicant present to speak?
Yes, we are. This actually is sitting over here. I'm Murray Marshall. I represent the Exley family. What we're asking is for an extension of the zone that is in Rice Hope right now. The residential is PRM, and that's what we're asking for so that we can build in this roughly 75 acres that the Exley still own between the backyard of the houses on this side of Rice Mill Road down to Black Creek. There are some wetlands in there. We're not gonna be touching the wetlands. The portion right up on the corner of the traffic light going, that the Publix is on the far side of the intersection is already zoned PC2, and we're asking for an extension to this side of that intersection to be the same zoning. The property is behind the pedestrian crossover that is serving the school system. That crossover is in the public right of way. This is not gonna be anywhere interfering with that crossover. The sidewalk for that crossover is in the area right behind the crossover is actually on Mr. Exley's property still. We reached an agreement with, actually we encouraged the city to relocate that sidewalk off of the highway side of the road between the crossover and the traffic lanes to the other side, and it was at our pushing, I think Mr. Harvey will agree with this, to get city council to face up to that, because the whole system had been shut down because nobody wanted to go across it. And we agreed to give an easement to the city to build the sidewalk on Mr. Exley's property. And that was 2.5 years ago, I believe. We still haven't finalized the transaction, which is the city's attorney and Mr. Exley's attorney are working on the final document to get the transfer done. But we executed a lease agreement, so the city has had the use of that property. But this development will be accessed off of Rice Mill Road not right up on the intersection, but if y'all are familiar with Rice Mill Road, when you come off the traffic light, you go in maybe, I wanna say 500 or 600 feet, and then the median stops, and there's an opening before you turn to go around the circle, and this will enter over on the left-hand side there. And then we will also be petitioning the DOT for a, what's called a right-in, right-out, that will be between the southern end of the pedestrian walkover and Black Creek. The anticipation is it's gonna be a for rent use of the residential part of it in townhouses. We are under a letter of intent with a major development company to build townhouses on it for rent. And there would be, I'm gonna say it's 18 acres of uplands in there. Excuse me, it would be 15 acres of uplands that they're buying. Probably around 200 units would be put in there. The zoning, I think, would allow 12 units per acre, so we would be, if the plan that's evolving right now is the one that is presented to you later, is the one that's used, it would be somewhere around 200 units. And I'd be glad to, water and sewer and all that stuff is already in place. Storm drainage will go, doesn't go in through any subdivision. Matter of fact, the Rice Creek storm drainage comes through Mr. Exley's property now. And we would just be tying into the 2 ditches that come through Mr. Exley's property now, downstream from any residential, existing residential, not upstream from it. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
How many, do you know about how many homes are gonna be in that area?
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't know exactly, but it'll be 15 to 16 acres of residential, so, what would that be? Around 200, townhouses.
What's, may I ask, what's the planned community business part?
Planned community, the business part of it?
Yeah.
It'd be a little strip center, neighborhood shops and things like that.
And that would be right up on the front, like.
Yes, it would,
Okay.
yes.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
just visually, the same thing that is across from, on Rice Hope, it would be similar to that, but on the other side.
What is at the, Lakeside Boulevard entrance to Rice Oak? Yeah, I think it would be. But we really don't have, we've got a lot of, it is amazing how many calls we get on a weekly basis for property with frontage on Highway 21. We haven't reached an agreement on the commercial. Matter of fact, we're fielding phone calls and taking names and, you know, and phone numbers, but we're not talking to anybody about any seriousness. But that is what we envision to be there. Yes, ma'am. What was that, excuse me?
I said, put some good food in there.
Yeah. Well, have y'all been to Moe's?
Yes.
Okay, I ate in Moe's a couple of days ago, well, end of last week. I was pleasantly surprised.
That's very good. In fact, it's very good for a Moe's, because they're not all that, it's good.
Yeah.
You said that, you brought it to the city council and pushed it about that,
The sidewalks.
so walk over.
Yes.
I remember 2 years ago, I came to city council and mentioned to them that somebody going eventually get killed.
Yes.
And then they made plans to change it around.
Yes.
I don't know if a private citizen making a suggestion helped, but it was, done.
Now, I remember, I was there when you did that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we were right there with you.
My question is, with this new development that you got proposing, y'all are using that same overpass for the kids that could be in that residence?
Certainly. Certainly, yes. I mean, we can't require people to go on the overpass. If traffic light's set up, you can go push a button, and if you're patient, the light's gonna change and it'll stop traffic if they're paying attention, and you can walk across. But yeah, we would encourage people to use the crossover.
So, if the shops, not for the homes necessarily, but for the shops that, may end up in that area.
Yes.
You said that they, excuse me, will be going through Rice Mill Road, at the roundabout. It'll be an intersection through there?
Yes.
Is what you're saying? Have we contacted any of the residents just in that area?
We've notified,
'Cause
how many people? We notified, I think the regulation says within 200 feet.
That's correct.
And I believe we went to 275 or 300 feet on the list that we submitted. So yes, ma'am.
So, but 200 or 300 feet would only be maybe 3 or 4 houses.
Oh, no. We go from the circle